I'm really conflicted about this keyboard. This is the Lofree Flow Lite. It's the new, cheaper version of the Lofree Flow that came out in 2023. Now, I've struggled immensely with this review. There's a lot of changes, there's many improvements, but there's still a few head scratchers. There were numerous times that I thought I had my opinion nailed, only to have something change it later on. I think that there are a few key themes to look for throughout this review. There are the typing experience, the optionality and customization offered or not offered, and the pricing. Now, importantly, this keyboard was provided to me by Lofree for the purposes of a review, though they had no say in the contents of this review. I actually received this keyboard way back in August. I put together an unboxing and impressions video of both keyboards to coincide with the release of the keyboard on Kickstarter. But I haven't felt comfortable releasing a full review just yet. I still feel a little weird doing it now. First of all, I wanted to get my review out on the Lofree Flow, the original one, so that you knew where I was coming from and so that I could familiarize myself with the background on Lofree's low-profile keyboards. That's out there now if you'd like to watch that first and then come back to this video. The second reason is that reviewing a pre-release product is challenging, and this was admittedly my first time doing it. Now, I think the early reviews that you see on a product are going to paint a picture for what that product is in your mind, and even if new information comes out later, sometimes it can be hard to erase those things. So as a result, I feel like I owe it to you to make sure that my review is as complete and accurate as I possibly can. I don't want to have a bunch of caveats, and I don't want to have a bunch of notes down in the comments correcting things that turned out to be wrong. At the same time, with pre-release reviews, that information very well can change. But the reviews live forever, and I want my opinions to stand up to the test of time whenever possible. Even today, though the Kickstarter is over, and has been for some time, this product is still not listed on Lofree's website, one of the things that I've been waiting for. Which means that I'll have to put a few caveats in this review even 4 months after I received this product. Now, while that fact is frustrating, I can't wait any longer at this point and have to put my perspective out there. So let's jump into the details, and if you enjoy this detailed look at the Lofree Flow Lite, go ahead and flow on down to the subscribe button. It only takes a light press to make my day. All right, starting with build and design, the Flow Lite keeps the spirit of the original Flow keyboard, but completely overhauls it from the ground up. First, the entire case is ABS plastic. This is the biggest driver in trying to keep the price down to a more accessible level. The plastic results in a lighter board, around 10% lighter, even though it's actually slightly larger in terms of its footprint. It also feels noticeably cheaper and less premium. The plastic feels more like a material that would be used on a children's toy than on a keyboard. There is a large amount of flex and softness to the whole thing. You can get a Flow Lite in this marble gray color, as well as off-white and flamingo pink. Each of these colors comes in this 75% version, which is known as the Flow Lite 84 for its 84 keys, and a 96% version known as the Flow Lite 100 because, you guessed it, there are 100 keys. I'm a fan of this pretty standard 75% layout. Now, though I love a good number pad on a keyboard, 96% designs are not my favorite. Most notably because of the small 0 key, which can make using the numpad a bit challenging, and also causes the arrow keys to feel a bit cramped as well. Something to take note of if you're interested in a larger size. New to the Flow Lite is this larger forehead. On it you'll find a volume knob as well as a Lofree logo. Personally, I could do without the Lofree branding as I think it takes away from the otherwise very clean look. I'm also not a huge fan of the volume knob. Though it looks nice, it functionally leaves a bit to be desired. It exclusively works for volume, allowing you to raise and lower the volume and press to mute. The issue is that the volume is difficult to fine-tune as a single tick of the knob often results in multiple steps up or down in volume, at least when I'm using it with my Mac. This means that I often wind up using the nearby volume keys instead of the knob. The other issue is a bit of a fit and finish type of issue, which results in it being a little bit annoying if you slide it back and forth, causing this clicking sound, which hopefully the mic is picking up. Another exciting addition to the Flow Lite is around back, where you'll find adjustable feet. These single-stage feet allow you to take your typing angle from around 3 degrees up to 6 degrees. I noted in my unboxing video how cool these feet are. Though they're not dual stage as many competitors offer, they are unique in that the rubber pad used to cushion the keyboard and prevent sliding when the feet are closed is the same bit of rubber used when the feet are open. It's a clever little design that will be easily overlooked by most people, but I really find it to be quite interesting. The only flaw to point out with these feet is that the rubber used, combined with the light weight of the keyboard, results in a bit less grip than many other keyboard feet. So depending on your surface, you may have a bit more sliding around with this keyboard compared to many others. However, this is worth the trade-off for actually having adjustable feet, unlike the original model. Overall, though I don't love the materials, the keyboard is a nice low-profile size with a simple monochromatic design that many people will appreciate and enjoy. Typing on the Flow Lite once again maintains the spirit of the original. In many ways, if you like typing on the original, you'll like typing on the new one. The Flow Lite introduces two new switch types, both linear and made by Kale. They're called Spectre and Hades. Spectre is described as light and delicate, and I'd say it's very similar to the linear ghost switches, which come on the white model of the original Flow. The Hades, on the other hand, are called smooth and silent, and are absolutely fantastic if you like quiet typing experiences. There's a whole lot more to talk about with these switches, but first let's do a typing test so that you can hear what we're working with. You probably noticed that the two switch types are very different in terms of their sounds. Unfortunately, when you order a Lofree Flow Lite, you can have whatever switch you want as long as it's Spectre. That's right, you have no choice but to get the Spectre switches. It says so right in the Kickstarter FAQ. If you want Hades, you have to buy them separately. I wish I could say that this is surprising, but given that your switch type was also predetermined based on the color of your original Flow, I guess I should have expected this. So now that we understand that, let's talk about the switches. The Spectre switches sound pretty solid, with a light clickety-clack sound and a smooth feel to the key presses. It's very similar to the regular Flow, but just a bit lighter and softer in both sound and feel. In that way, I prefer it. It's still incredibly smooth, but with a bit less actuation force required and a bit softer sound and feel thanks to the soft plastic construction rather than the full aluminum case. Overall, I don't love typing on the original Flow, and I still don't love this experience, but it's slightly better. Then there's Hades. Typing on the Hades switches on this board are like nothing I've ever experienced. It's extremely quiet, it feels soft and delicate, it's silky in a luxurious way. It's truly a wild typing experience. The more I've typed on this, which has actually been a ton over the last several months, as I've deliberated on how to handle this review, the more I wind up loving it. In a weird way, the cheaper plastic materials actually seem to enhance this typing experience because it works in tandem with the quiet switches to make this such a cohesive feeling across the board, with it being soft and quiet. I don't even know what more to say. I just absolutely love it. Now, we're not quite at the pricing section yet, and there's a lot more things to talk about with this keyboard before then, but we do have to dig a little bit further into this switch availability issue. Now, once again, this is being written well after the Kickstarter has completed, but final information is still not on Lofree's website, so it's possible that things will change. However, since your Lofree Flow Lite will come with Spectre switches, whether you like it or not, if you're paying for a non-Kickstarter price, you'll have to drop $129 or $139, depending on the size, on the keyboard itself. That's the MSRP. Followed by an additional $79 to get the Hades switches. You're now in over $200 for what is supposed to be the affordable for all mechanical keyboard. I mean, come on. That is absolutely crazy. Now, I promise I'll talk more about pricing at the end. For now, let's get back to the review. The keycaps on the Flow Lite are PBT plastic on top with polycarbonate on the bottom. They support shine through for the white backlighting included on all of the boards. The keycap shape is great, very similar to the original Flow, with lots of surface area to type on. They are mostly flat with a very slight concave shape to them, slightly less concave than the original Flow keycaps. They also feel just a bit softer and smoother than the original keycaps. Overall, I really like them. The font on the keys has changed a lot compared to the original Flow. I had lots of issues with the printing on the keycaps of the original, which I pointed out in my review. There are a ton of changes here. Primarily, printing has moved to the top middle of all of the keys with pretty much no exceptions, and the font is quite small, which is something to consider based on how good your eyes are. Many of the inconsistencies highlighted on the original Flow are gone. All keys with multiple symbols feature them side by side. On the bottom, they elected to use symbols for the Mac functions and words for the Windows functions. Consistency is great. Even the spacing on keys has gotten better, though it's not perfect. My only new complaint is that the symbols on the function row are a little weird. They're very similar to the shapes used on the original board, but with the introduction of shine through, they have points in many of them where the shape sort of breaks up. I'm not sure if this was a necessary thing for the manufacturing process, but when I look at them, it looks like incomplete art renderings or like a printout where the printer was running out of ink and resulted in small bits of missed printing. The shapes also just become harder to read as a result. I think that the forward, back, and pause buttons are the best examples. The fact that these shapes are open on the sides makes them look like weird Pac-Man figures rather than their intended shapes. This is a picky take, yes, but relevant for the pickiest among you for considering this keyboard. For functionality and features, we already mentioned the white backlighting. Gone are the RGB light bars on the original Flow. The keycap shine through with the white backlighting looks good, not great. What I do find quite impressive, though, is the fact that very little light escapes from around the keycaps, which some keyboards that even have shine through don't really do that well. What comes through those dedicated shine through points is basically all the light that the keyboard emits. Otherwise, the space around the keys stays relatively dim, which is nice. The Flow Lite works with Mac and Windows, and modes are swapped using function M for Mac and function N for Windows. I'd prefer a toggle switch on the back, but at least this is something. This model introduces a new key configurator software in order to make customizations possible for your keyboard settings. This does appear to be fully proprietary and not QMK based. The software was offered to me, but since I'm reviewing before the official launch, I didn't actually test the software. That's because I'm not personally willing to launch an executable file that's shared to me via a Google Drive. That's just my own personal feeling. It's a little bit too risky for me. They did share these screenshots, though, of what the program should look like. Importantly, this key configurator is going to be available for Windows only. They allegedly plan to develop a web-based application compatible across operating systems. However, you should buy based on what exists today, not what's promised tomorrow. So make sure you check their site for the latest before buying if you hope to customize on a Mac. The keyboard functions on the function row are the same as the original Flow, offering the same strange behavior where all the alternative functions work by default, except for the keyboard backlighting. There continues to be no function lock to enable switching this, and there are also 3 keys that continue to have no function on Mac. In theory, you could reprogram these with the Lofree software, but that would currently require you to connect the keyboard to a Windows machine in order to fix a Mac problem, which is less than ideal. For connectivity, the Flow Lite has the same 3-device Bluetooth capabilities and wired mode, but thankfully it adds a 2.4 gig USB receiver in the box. This is brand new and very welcome, especially for folks who either don't have a good Bluetooth connectivity option on the device that they use, or who aren't able to use Bluetooth with a work computer, for example. The USB receiver is also capable of 1000 Hertz, which is great news for those looking to use this keyboard for gaming. Finally, it has a slot on the bottom of the keyboard to store it when not in use. When using Bluetooth to connect your keyboard, the Flow Lite suffers from the exact same painfully slow sleep to wake as the original version. Thankfully, with the introduction of the 2.4 gig USB receiver, that lag goes away completely. Using this receiver, the keyboard feels like it pretty much never goes to sleep. Even if I leave the board on overnight, when I come back in the morning, it's right there, ready to go, and doesn't skip a beat. Somehow, despite this fact, the battery did not seem to drain excessively quickly, because usually it's a trade-off between not falling asleep and saving your battery. So the fact that it's able to do both is pretty impressive. Now, speaking of battery, the Flow Lite uses the same 2000 milliamp hour battery on this size with a 3000 milliamp hour one on the 100 key version. This battery sizing is behind much of the competition, but with backlighting off and using the USB receiver, this keyboard seemed to just last forever. The actual advertised battery life is 80 hours with the lights off on this version and 100 hours with the lights off on the larger board. We've covered a lot of different things, and there's been a lot of discussion about what has changed from the Flow to the Flow Lite. So to help keep you mentally organized, here's a quick roundup of the changes. First, since this is a cheaper keyboard, you'd expect some things to get worse. The only real things here that I could find are the use of plastic in the case instead of aluminum, and the removal of those RGB light bars. On the flip side, there's quite a bit that got better. Like I said, there's a lot of improvements here. A 2.4 gig USB receiver with 1000 Hertz was added, along with the adjustable feet for typing angles. These were two of the biggest complaints about the original Flow. A volume knob was added, along with the key map configurator, both of which are nice to have. And finally, the typing experience was improved, at least in my opinion, especially when using those Hades switches. So now, let's talk about pricing. Depending on how you look at it, price is either the best thing about this keyboard or the worst. After all, this is the new affordable version of the Lofree Flow and has a lot of enhancements that we just went over. The MSRP for the Flow Lite is $129 for this size and $139 for the larger 100 key. This keyboard right here with the Hades switches for $129 would get two massive thumbs up for me. I would absolutely be in favor of that keyboard at that price. But unfortunately, this is not a $129 keyboard. Buying the keyboard plus the exorbitantly priced $80 switches means that this is a $210 keyboard, way more expensive than even the original Flow. Now, if money is no object to you and you love quiet keyboards, then go right ahead, you'll love it. But for the rest of us, that's pretty insane. This is not a $200 keyboard. Making matters worse, I pointed out in my review of the Flow that the switches Lofree offers for sale are sold in packs of 90. Remember how I said the fact that the larger Flow had 100 keys? Yeah, I said that was going to be relevant. Well, this means that if you go with the Flow 100 model, which has 100 keys, you won't even get enough switches to fully swap out your entire board. Now you either need to leave some keys in the original switches or buy two $70 packs of switches, which suddenly means you're paying nearly as much for switches as you did for the whole board. Now this might change with them showing the Hades switches as upgraded to 106 per order, but given that the others still show 90, who knows if this will hold beyond the Kickstarter. Looking at differentiators and deal breakers, on my differentiator list is first and foremost the incredible typing experience with these Hades switches. The typing also continues to be incredibly smooth, just like the original Flow. There is the important addition of the 2.4 gig receiver, along with the 1000 Hertz connection that it supports. A new volume knob and adjustable feet are also solid additions. On the deal breaker side, there remains the painful sleep to wake timing on Bluetooth, which thankfully has a solution this time around, but is still present. The plastic design feels much cheaper and less premium than the Flow, and less premium than other plastic boards in this price range. The battery is smaller than it probably should be. I could do without the branding on the top of the board, and the keycap font is a little weird and very small. Finally, you can only get this board with the inferior Spectre switches, and it'll cost you $80 to get the Hades ones that I love. Overall, this is a good keyboard, and it's a step in the right direction on many fronts compared to the original Flow. But what could have been a celebration of value and improvement is stymied by a lack of ability to customize your switch type when ordering, and the absurd pricing for what is supposed to be an affordable keyboard. And unfortunately, that's just the moral of the story. Great keyboard, bad pricing, and bad customization at the time of purchase. There's just not much more that I can say. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.